This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore.
One unforeseen problem with Donald Trump coming on the scene as a political operator, as president of the United States, in my estimation, is the initiation of a new political animal in the United States. And when I say the initiation, we all know people in our lives who were never interested in politics. I never voted. People who may even have opinions about politics and policy, but who never actually voted. And what Donald Trump did, for the worse, I think, is convince people of low information, not low education necessarily, but low information, people who rely upon conspiracy theory and innuendo and rumor to inform their political beliefs. And these people who went from never voting or never really maybe caring about politics to being deeply concerned, to being passionate about politics. And they brought with them and their passion, their low information understanding of the world and American politics especially. And along with that class of individual, I use class very loosely, along with that class of individual, political class of individual, came a new outcropping of individual running for Congress. Your high school dropout, Lauren Boebert, your Marjorie Taylor Greene, who believes Jews have lasers in space to fire on California to start insane forest fires, and Madison Cawthorn, an absolutely unqualified individual who is now in the halls of Congress representing a district, North Carolina's 11th congressional district, Asheville, North Carolina, if you're familiar with the state. And you may have seen this clip recently. I'm going to play it a little later after I read a couple paragraphs from this Politico article. Madison Cawthorn was on a podcast. It's like a bro thing, and he's got his hat on backwards, and he's being asked a question as, what's it like in Congress? Is it like House of Cards, the show on Netflix? Was House of Cards like a documentary? That's not a joke, not an exaggeration. I laugh because it's funny, because it's dum-dum territory. And he went on to talk about, again, I'm going to play the clip, but he went on to talk about how he's been invited to orgies with septuagenarian congressmen for him to watch. And he's watched members of Congress do cocaine, which of course indicates, because he's not palling around or associating with Democrats. What he's saying is there's lots of members of the House Caucus, the House Republican Caucus, who are engaging in these behaviors. Good or bad, you can have your judgments, whatever. I'm not judging him. I'm saying that that's who he's implicating in this, which of course caused concern. He got called in to the principal's office, the principal in this case being Mike McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy, excuse me. Mike McCarthy is a totally different person. I'm going to read from this article because now Kevin McCarthy, who has done nothing with the bigotry and the racism on full display by the members of this new political class, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the Lauren Boeberts, now this has upset him. All of the racism and the bigotry and the white nationalist speaking slots, not a problem. The Jewish space lasers, the lack of understanding or invoking the Holocaust when talking about COVID vaccine mandates, all of this was no problem. Talk about a little coke, talk about a little sex outside of marriage, and Kevin McCarthy's going to drop the hammer on you. Reading from this Politico article, Cawthorn's lost my trust following orgy and cocaine comments. The GOP leader is not yet revoking the North Carolina Republicans committee spots, but he signals he's lost patience with the freshman lawmaker. The GOP leader said Wednesday, after meeting with the North Carolina Republican that morning, that Cawthorn has, quote, lost my trust due to his repeated actions that were not becoming for a congressman. Again, it should be concerning to you. It certainly is concerning to me. what exactly Kevin McCarthy believes is becoming of a member of Congress, someone under his employ, roughly speaking, him being the minority leader. If the House gets taken back by the Republicans, he will be the Speaker of the House of Representatives. What exactly is conduct unbecoming? If speaking at a white nationalist conference is not, what is? And McCarthy warned the freshman he could face punishment if he doesn't take certain steps to turn himself around, which could include losing his committee spots, which up to this point has been an eventuality unavailable to these ne'er-do-wells in Congress in the Republican Party. Cawthorn enraged wide swaths of his own conference when he recently claimed on a podcast that his colleagues have seemingly invited him to an orgy and that he watched at least one fellow lawmaker consume cocaine. Consume cocaine? Just gobbling it up. I guess that's how the Politico writer believes cocaine is, technically, I guess it's correct. Claiming that the same member was involved in an anti-addiction efforts, and it's just the latest episode in a series of controversial remarks Cawthorn has made. So, if you haven't seen it, here is the clip of backward-hatted Brofest answering the question about whether what some think is a good show, House of Cards, is really a documentary.
How much, in your opinion, because you've been behind the veil, is this a fictitious show, or is this more closer to like a documentary? Is it that bad?
So I heard a former president that we had in the 90s was asked the question about this. And he gave an answer that I thought was so true. And he said, the only thing that's not accurate in that show is that you could never get a piece of legislation about education passed that quickly. Then all of a sudden you get invited to, like, well, hey, we're going to have kind of a sexual get-together at one of our homes. You should come. And I'm like, what did you just ask me to come to? Yeah. And then you realize they're asking you to come to an orgy. Yeah. Or the fact that, there's some of the people that are leading on the movement to try and remove, addiction in our country. And then you watch them do, a key bump of cocaine right in front of you. And it's like, wow, this is wild.
So, based on that, not all the other insane things that Madison Cawthorn has said and done, like telling parents that if you have sons, raise them to be monsters, he said, you'll remember. That didn't invoke any conversation at all, but this did. McCarthy said that during their private talk, he pointed to quote-unquote certain things Cawthorn needed to start doing professionally and in his own life as well, and he isn't discounting more meetings with the freshman lawmaker, saying there very well could be more conversations with Cawthorn as GOP leaders assess what actions are taken by him. Quote, you can't make statements like that as a member of Congress. It affects everybody else and the country as a whole, McCarthy added. House Minority Whip Steve Scalise, which, by the way, every time I invoke his name, every time I say Steve Scalise's name, I want to remind you that Steve Scalise, I always do that, and it seems appropriate that Steve, not Skeeve Scalise, has identified himself as just like David Duke without all the baggage. Just a reminder. House Minority Whip Skeeve Scalise said in an interview that during their meeting with Cawthorn, the House GOP's top two leaders expressed real concern with some of the things he's done recently. And obviously, the ball's in his court in terms of how to respond. But we were very clear with the concerns we had, and a lot of our other members too. In addition, they say, to the orgy cocaine claims, McCarthy also cited Cawthorn's calling Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky a thug as problematic. Plus, Cawthorn had caused another controversy when he lied to an officer in the United States Capitol, saying GOP congressional candidate Robbie Starbuck was one of his staffers to bring him onto the House floor. Additionally, McCarthy said it's unacceptable for a member of Congress to be driving without a license after failing to show up to court. That's because he's a child who has a childlike understanding of American politics based on what he's learned and witnessed from Donald Trump. The other thing about this is that now, according to McCarthy, Cawthorn is pretty much just admitting that he lied or it greatly exaggerated the story. Reading here, and McCarthy had some information for Republican lawmakers who have called on Cawthorn to name names, too. The GOP leader said Cawthorn described the cocaine incident differently than he did in the podcast. Instead of a lawmaker, Cawthorn told McCarthy he believes, quote, he thinks he saw maybe a staffer in a parking garage, maybe 100 yards away, and that Cawthorn told him he doesn't know what cocaine is. Quote, it is just frustrating. There is no evidence behind his statements. Welcome to the world, Kevin McCarthy, where Republicans say things with no evidence. Why would you be shocked? I don't believe you are shocked, Kevin McCarthy. You're a mature enough political operator that you understand what is happening here, and you're trying to spin this because you have a problem in your caucus. It is filled to the brim with nutter butters and problematic individuals who lean so far right as to fall off the face of the earth, which they may believe is flat. What do you think about all of this? I've hesitated to talk about it because it comes across as a little gossipy, but there's a place for this because it does point to what I talked about at the top of the video. The low information political people who believe that they have a tight grasp on reality and how things work. I mean, we have United States senators talking about how the Constitution protects your right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in Marsha Black. But we have idiots in the Republican Party who are in the highest offices in our country. And that's should be alarming. Anyway, what do you think? I'd love to know. You can call, leave me a brief voicemail, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email me daily at dollemore.com. I would absolutely love to hear from you. Thanks for all of the discussion. Thanks for the comments in the comment section. It's comment section, right? It's not just the comments. In the comments below. You'd think I'd know the nomenclature of the YouTube page, having done this for as long as I have. But apparently, much like Madison Cawthorn, I'm a bit of a dum-dum. Follow me on social media. I'd love to see you there. I'm at Dollemore, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, at Dollemore. That is my social media handle. Follow that one. Not other fraud ones that are trying to scam you with your bank accounts, at Dollemore. I mentioned it yesterday in a video. I'm not going to go back through the whole thing again. Love you guys. Appreciate you. If you appreciate me, please consider supporting and producing my work here. You can click the join button below this video, become a channel member for as little as $2 a month, or you can head on over to patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. I'll see you next time. Until I do, be genuine. Take care of one another.